The truth is almost unbelievable. The Federal Reserve isn't federal, and it has no reserve, and its creation is a story so secret, so engineered, and so deeply woven into America's destiny that once you hear it, you will never look at money the same way again, because the real owners of America's money didn't run for office. They built a system where the nation itself became their customer. It began in the early 1900s when America was growing fast, but its financial system was unstable, collapsing every decade, and each collapse made one thing painfully clear. Private bankers, especially J.P. Morgan, had more power than the government itself, something proven in 1907 when the economy suddenly fell apart. Banks failed, millions panicked, and the U.S. government could do nothing, absolutely nothing, until one man, Morgan, personally rescued the entire system with his own money, acting like a one-man central bank, terrifying Washington and convincing America's elite that the country needed a central banking system. But the public hated Wall Street so fiercely that any bank run by bankers would have been politically impossible. So the most powerful men in finance came up with a solution. Create a central bank secretly. Write it in a way that sounds federal, give it a patriotic name, hide who truly controls it, and then hand it to the government wrapped like a gift. And that's why, on a cold night in November 1910, 7 of the wealthiest, most influential men on Earth, representing a quarter of all the world's wealth, boarded a private train using fake names, telling even their families they were going duck hunting, and traveled to Jekyll Island, a private resort owned by Morgan himself, where, behind locked doors and no press, no witnesses, not even servants allowed inside, they designed the blueprint of a banking system that would look like a public institution, but function like a private corporation, owned by member banks who would receive guaranteed profits through mandatory dividends, protected from competition, shielded from transparency, and backed by the full power of the U.S. government. Their plan was so sensitive, so explosive, that for years even the participants denied the meeting happened because they knew. If Americans discovered that their money supply was being handed to private banking dynasties, the public would revolt. But when the panic of 1907 faded, the memory of suffering remained, and so the bankers reintroduced their plan under a new name, the Federal Reserve Act, which Woodrow Wilson signed on December 23, 1913, when most of Congress had already left for Christmas, quietly transferring the power to create, price, expand, and contract the nation's money supply into the hands of a private network of regional banks, each one owned by the very institutions they were supposed to supervise. And from that moment on, America no longer issued its currency. America borrowed it, giving birth to a system where money is created as debt, where every dollar must be loaned into existence, where inflation isn't an accident but a feature, where recessions can be engineered, and where interest becomes a permanent tax paid not to the government, but to the financial families, institutions, and private shareholders behind the system. And every crisis afterward only strengthened their control. The Great Depression, the collapse of Bretton Woods, the 1971 end of gold convertibility, the savings and loan disaster, the 2008 crash that transferred trillions upward, and the massive money printing of 2020-2021 that inflated assets for the wealthy while crushing the working class, all proving that the Fed does not serve the people. The Fed serves the system that created it. A system where a group of unelected financial architects can decide interest rates that determine the cost of your mortgage, the value of your savings, the rise and fall of markets, and the strength of the dollar itself. And now, as the Federal Reserve moves towards central bank digital currencies, programmable dollars that can be monitored, frozen, restricted, or erased, the true owners of America's money stand on the brink of owning something far larger: America's behavior, America's transactions, and America's choices. Because the Federal Reserve is not federal, it has no reserve, and the people who built it still exist in its shadows today, shaping the world quietly, invisibly, unchallenged, and unelected, proving that in the United States of America, presidents change, Congress fights, parties rise and fall. But the money, the real power, belongs to the same hands that claimed it on a secret island more than a century ago.